There's a phrase, data contract. There's a data contract between privacy and security, and it's kind of a sliding scale. And we're just trying to find the optimal version of that where you get maximum amount of both.
Welcome to the Huckleros podcast with special guest Connor Peters from Locke Identity.
All right, welcome to Huckleros. I'm sitting here with my guest Connor Peters. Huckleros is, we were just talking about before we hit record. I've been kind of beating some different names around about this podcast, about entrepreneurship, business stories, and life in general. Just interesting. I like to talk with people about their story. I think, to be an entrepreneur, to be someone who's doing interesting things in business and life, it takes grit and sometimes maybe even some delusion. I know I've had all these over the years. And, this is a theme that we're going to talk about is like Too Dumb to Quit. That was the name that you liked, actually. And welcome,
name.
Connor.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
And we are recording at the world famous Next Course Studios in downtown Rochester, New York, in the historic Sibley's building. And so shout out Chris for the basically studio engineer. He's got us set up here to record today. So I just wanted to do that quick. And so Huckleros is kind of, it's a running joke. I've had the domain for a while. It's meant a lot of things over the years. And I kind of want to take ownership of it, is that it's something that makes it's kind of unique. It's a little standout. And I think maybe that's what the people like you or anybody that might be, nice enough to come and talk with me for a bit has to kind of have some kind of edge or story. That's where the Too Dumb to Quit comes from. The episode I'm doing with Fran Law talks about the genesis of that. But that's really what led us here today. Is I've known you through Next Core, and you have a really interesting story to share. And I think so you could decide at the end if you're a Hucklero or not.
Well, so I'm going to need more context. What is a Hucklero? Where did that word come from? And you've owned this domain for a while. Is this one of those optimistic domain buys where you're like,
yeah,
I'm going to do something with this, I promise?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. I'm like, okay,
10 years later, yeah.
Totally. And that's exactly what it is. Huckleros means many things. I think the genesis of it was like from this old judge show, like Street Justice or something. It's like this Brooklyn judge, you calling people Huckleros in the show. So we just I think myself and my cousin just started calling, it was like everything was Hucklero.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
Making hosting after hours and cooking people breakfast, making breakfast sandwiches, those were like Huckleros. So it was like one of these interchangeable names. So it could be a lot of different things. And I think in the context of that, an entrepreneur, someone in business, it could be a lot of different things. So that's kind of the melding of that. Whether it makes sense or not, who knows?
Okay, fair enough.
But
yeah.
But I think we'll find out. We'll find out at the end. I'll ask if you think you could be a Hucklero, or what the Hucklero means to you. Maybe.
Okay.
You started your entrepreneurial journey at an early age. At 16 or something? What can you talk about?
15 technically, but
15.
Well, it was one of those things where I was always technical growing up. I was always, messing around with computers, writing code, and people just asked me for websites. And I was like, I guess I can charge money for that. So I guess I have a business now.
That's awesome.
And then I ended up doing that for 6 years, So it's funny how life works out that way. My entire family was entrepreneurial. My uncle owned a water treatment business. My dad ran a law practice. My mom has her business. So, yeah.
What's your mom's business?
She's a golden doodle breeder.
Oh, wow.
For service dogs and therapy dogs. Yeah. She's the highest rated breeder on the East Coast. She has, her average review is 5 stars. So 5.0 over
That's average.
70 reviews. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah,
there's no outliers there?
There's maybe one.
Yeah.
But,
that's remarkable.
The way that
shout
I think
out
about
mom.
anything. Yeah. Shout out. No, Peter's Puppies. She's
Peter's Puppies.
I've delivered I delivered one of our puppies to Jim Nance.
No way.
Yeah. So got to shake his hand, and he's surprisingly large guy. I mean, everybody I think associated with football is just way bigger than you think when they're on TV.
That's so funny. I ran into Dan Marino when I was just down in Florida. Like he was he was in the line in front of me at the store. Yeah.
Wow.
I think they worked together.
When you're just in
Florida? Yeah. It was last month. That was funny.
That's so cool.
But yeah, definitely larger than life, right?
But with my mom's business, she was one of the first websites I ever did, and the first 3 or 4 websites I made I did for free just to build up my portfolio.
Okay.
And then I eventually realized I could charge, but she really positioned herself at kind of the top of her market. The wide receiver coach for the 49ers, has one of her dogs, and and I think with life, no matter what you do, you should just strive to be at the top. If you're not in the top 90th percentile, I think you should probably find something that you can be.
That's like
that's kind of my philosophy.
That's like Ricky Bobby if you ain't first, you're last. Like Talladega Nights.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And NASCAR drivers actually have her dogs too.
No way.
So I came from this family, and just doing this. So I always knew I wanted to start Locke, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But the genesis of that took a lot longer.
So you had a lot of support in, it wasn't like, hey, I'm doing this, and there was any resistance or traction. Was like, oh, that's great, you're finding.
Yes and no. Okay. Yes and no. I think there was never even to this day, I've been doing this for a while, there's never been a question of like, hey, you should get a real job. They're very supportive of that journey. But entrepreneurship is fundamentally a difficult thing, no matter how it goes. Even if you're raging success, that's just even harder to deal with, right?
Yeah.
So there's no pretense around that, I think, in my family. So support, yes. I mean, I'm extremely grateful to have all of the various people in my life who support me.
Yeah.
And ultimately nothing happens at an individual basis. It's all based on community at the end of the day. So
that's really wild. And to have, obviously it's probably get your schoolwork done first, and maybe it's not taking, I'm trying to finish this client site, or the site's down, and it's like, well, you have trigonometry homework that's due, or
I was homeschooled.
Okay.
So
then that's even more pressure to get the work done, because they know where you're at.
Well, I mean, my mom kind of took this sort of unschooling approach, where I got in trouble early on in elementary school. I was, a classic hyperactive kid.
Okay.
And so she would make me run 3 miles every day before school. And then that apparently fixed my behavior a lot in elementary. But then what would happen is
remarkable.
I would finish my schoolwork and I would read a book afterwards, and for whatever reason my 4th grade teacher had a big problem with that, and so that's when my mom was like, we're not doing this anymore. So I was homeschooled for a few years, and then I went to a private school for a couple of years, and then I was homeschooled again. And so the second time that I was homeschooled, it was kind of just I had this sort of free license to do whatever I wanted, which was really a unique way to grow up. My mom is a very unique individual in that she allowed me to do this. In the first couple of months, being a typical I think I was 14 at the time, I kind of just watched movies for the first 3 months, and I didn't do anything. And then I felt so guilty about that I just started, my natural sense of motivation started building, and I just got to work from there.
What movies do you remember? What movies you were watching?
I honestly, that was I just got pulled out of school. I couldn't drive. I didn't have access to my friends. So I was just depressing watching just anything on Netflix or whatever.
Sure.
And then I started the business. And at that point, that was a lot where my focus was growing customers.
And you're doing website design, creation,
logo design,
and you would host them and do maybe have a retainer style business, like a traditional.
My plan initially was to build up enough hosting clients that I kind of had that passive income. Initially, I wanted to go and pursue a PhD, and so my thought process was build up enough passive income where I can pursue a PhD and not, worry about money. And then I realized that having this goal of passive income sounds great, but it just fundamentally was kind of a boring thing. I didn't want that. I wanted to create. I didn't want to just sit on these websites that I had hosted. And also you kind of realize the economics of it. You're going to have a lot of sites for it to really be a true source of income. So I actually started doing IT through my undergrad. So I was a system administrator.
And you went because or talk about how you went to college, because it sounds like you went early and graduated early.
Yeah. So this is, again, shout out to my mom. She realized that there's this sort of little bit of a loophole in New York State where if you got 24 college credits, that's a high school equivalency diploma. So she basically, and then also there was a lot of funding for homeschool students to go to GCC. So I went to GCC, a community college, and it was completely paid for by the state. And just because that's how they did it. And I took my first class with statistics at 14. And then I was full-time at 15. And then I graduated my associates at 17. And then I transferred to SUNY Brockport and got my bachelor's there, and I graduated at 19. But again, I think a lot of that has to do, it's not by merit, it's more just knowing the system and how it works and being able to sort of utilize that and to my skill set and
yeah. But anybody who's successful learns systems, like, you know, people are learning the tax system and how it's advantageous to you. I never knew about that. So, and I guarantee 80-90% of people wouldn't understand that because it's, you know, traditionally going to school and, and everything along those lines.
And there's pros and cons with it too, right? Because what happens is when you're, you know, significantly younger than everybody in a room, it becomes kind of a part of your identity a little bit.
Right.
You're like, oh, I'm the young sort of whiz kid. And realistically, tying your identity to your age is a really bad thing to do because it's an inevitable thing that you age. Like you can't control it. You can't control everybody gets old.
Right.
And so if you're thinking that you're on this trajectory and then maybe years go by and you're not where you thought you might be, you can have a bit of an identity crisis. And I think it's really important to decouple those things and realize that you're more than just, you know, any specific facet of life.
So how was that campus life, going to classes? Did you have the normal college experience, or I mean, being it had to have been maybe a little bit truncated, or
it was I'd say it's unique because I got exposed to a lot of things at a much younger age, like, you know, going to a college party at like age 16 or whatever, but I didn't live on campus, so I was a commuter student, so I don't think I really ever got that true like college experience, but I didn't mind it because I had my whole life I've had great living situations. I lived with my best friend and his older sister and her husband. They bought a house and they rented it to us for like $300 a month. You know, so
tremendous.
Yeah, it was like
for a college student.
Yeah, it was perfect. Living with my best friend and his sister. I'm very close with her too. So like, and her husband, everybody. And just like for a couple of years, we all just lived together and vibed. And,
really wonderful situations that you've cultivated for yourself, and still having the college party. So at 16, I mean, you can share what you like, but like, were you doing keg stands or like, was it like?
I was always sort of a straight shooter. I never really did anything super crazy, but just being there and you know, in that environment and being like, okay, like,
all right, like this is what this is like.
But one of my early internships was doing IT at the local school, and the person who hired me said that one of the things he really liked was that I was just capable of talking to adults, and that I kind of matured early, which I think that was just a result of the homeschooling and that experience.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important, that if you're gonna fake it till you make it in that situation, right? And that's really interesting to have, because you have a really unique upbringing in that, where, you know, most people go to school and then go to college and then find a job. You're able.
There's nothing wrong with that,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
but I think that's what's interesting. Your path is different than a lot of people, and to remain almost like you have a real wise sensibility about that. It's understanding that, like, well, my age and doesn't define my experience or where I should be, or, you know, I think that's important. So you're not having a midlife crisis, as you say. It's like,
I've already gone through that.
How you, No, you're definitely a huckleberry. You know?
Oh, nice. I'm a huckleberry.
Yeah.
And yeah. So from there, I was at school, and I met Brandon Post. He was the sort of older, like, Army vet who was going back to school.
Okay.
And he was like the 4.0 GPA, like top of the class guy. And he kind of told me offhand one day that he would want to start a startup. and I think he regrets that, because
Oh no.
this was like years in the making, but I kind of filed that away, and then 5 or 6 years later, I approached him starting with Locke. But we'll get to that in a bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to ask you, because in that you had the college experience early, graduated, and people should take notes if they're interested. If you have young children, if you could do that, that's a tremendous way, especially now in the age of like AI and giving kids an opportunity to really understand like what they want to do in life. That may be a really interesting path for other people if it's the right fit. But you also were a business manager and a producer for like a recording artist too?
Yeah. So my best friend Carson that I lived with throughout my college career, after I graduated, I moved to North Carolina for a year. And while in that time he was still up in New York, he went viral on TikTok. He's a songwriter. He's been a singer his whole life. He's an incredible singer.
All right.
And honestly, he's an incredible singer. I think his songwriting ability even supersedes that. It's really an interesting thing when you watch somebody write a song and it's being pulled out of them. They're not the one doing the creative act so much as it's just coming out. And then suddenly there's like a fully formed song that you just witnessed it being created.
Okay.
Really remarkable thing. But anyway, he went viral on TikTok. And
what was that like? For him, for you, like what?
Yeah,
because you were pretty close to that experience.
Yeah. So he went viral, and what was interesting about his virality on TikTok was his sound that he created became like a sound that people used.
Oh,
so
right.
So it went a lot further than just like his video. It was like his sound became kind of part of like this like underground sort of cultural thing on TikTok.
Yeah.
And then he was approached by Columbia, Germany, the German branch of Columbia Records. And he asked me to manage him, and we had discussions with them, and we ultimately signed a record deal. Good news for recording artists these days is that record deals are actually very artist friendly. They used to be like, people used to think like, oh, it was taken advantage of.
Yeah.
But now after a certain amount of time, you get full access, full ownership over everything. So that was the deal that we struck. And I managed him through a few different singles that we created, a few different music videos. I could get deep into the music business.
Yeah. Well, hey, this is just the one. We'll have you back on, man. You got a lot of stories. But I'm curious as to what was it, going viral is something, it's kind of like a unicorn thing, right? It doesn't happen to everyone. If you listen to people online, they can tell you they have formulated it and they'll sell it to you,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Or there's a lot of mechanics. And I think maybe even this is, without knowing years, it's probably, something where there's a novelty to it. It was like, oh my God, I'm going viral on TikTok. It was this phone blowing up and
oh my gosh,
calling it like, in terms
insane.
of just notifications and it's melting his battery.
Yeah. And more than melting his battery, it kind of melts your ego a little bit, in the sense that he's getting all these inbound messages of people being like, this is so incredible. This like saved my life. Like I was going to commit suicide and I didn't. And it's like a lot of pressure. And I think ultimately we kind of came to the realization that like being sort of internet famous kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Like
that's really insightful.
Yeah. Well, and then like we had a Discord that we started a Discord chat with all of the fans, and it was really productive at first, but it kind of got co-opted a little bit in some ways. So we it was really odd experience. And to Carson's credit, you could say going viral, it is luck, a lot of it. But he kind of saw TikTok early on, and he said that he told me, he's like, this is the next Vine. And there is going to be a lot of potential here. And he started posting, and he kind of just made that happen for himself. So credit to him. I was just along for the ride. He just needed someone who had a little bit of business experience that he trusted. And I was like 20. I was 20.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that much business experience, but enough to know if he was getting taken advantage of by the label. And then what was really strange about that time too is COVID had just hit. We were supposed to meet the label in New York City in 2020, and they're from Germany. They were flying in. COVID hit. And so all of the music creation process happened remotely. And that really was an extremely big challenge, because I feel like creativity, again, it's not something you like you plan, you don't iterate on it in the same way you do a lot of business where like
Sure.
email back and forth. It's like, no, it needs to just like, you need to create. And to do that remotely was a big challenge.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think we really
you have
figured it
that.
out.
You're like, we can probably record in this. You're like, we could probably record here.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at this.
You're like,
This is a great space. Yeah.
Get it. And what is he up to now? Are you still
yeah,
in
so
touch?
yeah, we're still very close. He works, he does actually social media marketing for a local startup that's they're doing quite well. We the Hobby.
Okay. Oh yeah.
He's a big sports fan, so he now gets to go to like the Super Bowl and stuff and like record meet NFL
that's
players.
Super cool.
So
yeah.
he's honest, and he still writes music all the time, and he still plans on doing an album and everything. And he has dozens of songs in the backlog. I think for him, especially being in the limelight, it's kind of counterintuitive to what he writes about. So it's like such a personal thing to write a song about a personal struggle. To put that into public takes a piece of you. When he's ready to share it, he'll share it. Yeah.
Yeah. Where can we find what went viral on TikTok? Because I wonder, like, if we'll put it in the notes or whatever. Because I want to see, if it's one of those memes, like, oh, I know that.
I would be surprised if you knew it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's called Soulmate Song. Carson James Argena is his name. And there was like a 12-second clip that went viral. Just a sound that he made. And maybe you'll recognize it.
You never know.
You never know.
It's, COVID times, there wasn't much else to do, but doom scroll. It was a whole different time period. So you're 20 years old. You've worked on getting, or like worked on your buddy's record deal after going viral. You have a bachelor's degree and a successful web design business. And so what's next after?
Yeah. So if you rewind just a couple of years, I was working as the sole system administrator for a college campus.
Okay.
And this was through my bachelor's, just to pay bills. And about 40 to 50% of my time was just spent resetting student and teachers' passwords. And I knew who everybody was, but the computers didn't. And I realized that was a really difficult problem to solve. And I didn't know how I was going to solve it, but I knew eventually I would want to. So that's where the genesis for Locke came from. And I kind of just put it on the back burner, but it was this type of thing. I knew how big of a problem it was, but it stuck with me. And over all these things that I'm working on, I keep coming back to this same problem of identity on the internet, digital identity, how there's little pieces of us everywhere on the internet and we don't really have control over it. And how do you define the ownership between, identity on the internet? And so that was, it just stuck with me and it kept coming back. So eventually I knew I was going to start Locke. I didn't have the name. I didn't have anything. But eventually I recruited Brandon that I met in college, and I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And,
that's Brandon that I know.
Yes.
Yeah. That I met. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so I recruited
a great
him,
story.
And I just started talking to him about this, and he was like, "This is big," and I was like, "I know this is a big problem we're setting out to solve. It's not going to be easy, but do you want to be a part of it?"
Sure.
And yeah, eventually he agreed, and we didn't know what we were doing. Nobody does when they start a startup. I knew the problem and I knew the why. I didn't know the what.
Sure.
I didn't know how we were going to solve it. So we just started hacking and just building different products. This is before AI.
Right.
So like each product iteration that we did took a lot of manpower.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn quickly how important customer discovery is. This is just the classic startup problem where you build something and then nobody wants it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to learn that the hard way.
You need, that's the Huckler way. But I think, that actually, because I printed something out for your website, but you still had this true north, and this is on your website. It's your tenets of what we believe. And I won't read the whole thing, but it's freedom first, maximizing personal freedom for individuals.
That's number one.
Number one.
Freedom first.
Yeah. Hidden information is the basis of personal freedom.
Yeah.
So I agree, but talk about that in a world where we give up so much of our identity. You just said we all have these little pieces all over, everything's tracked and monitored. And, thankfully we're in a country where it's maybe just used as like leverage and like from a consumer standpoint. But I think people don't value their privacy, and the that hidden information, and so because it's bold, right?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, so to speak to that a little bit, I'll get into that tenet specifically. I'm quite pleased with that, and I'll explain why. But not only do you not have like privacy, you don't really have control over what is put into your brain. Other organizations and devices and all the social media and everything, they kind of control your diet. And I think that's just fundamentally a massive problem. And then AI just exacerbates that now, because not only do you not have control over what you're seeing, you don't even know if it's made by a human or not. You know, it's just could be just slop, right? So I came to this realization that freedom means that you have, so hidden information is the basis for personal freedom. And that goes at, and if you read actually, could you just read the remainder of that?
Yeah,
and I'll explain a little bit
absolutely. So hidden information is the basis of personal freedom. We hold that to be free, information must be hidden and secured, hidden from governments, from the general public, from your friends, from your family, from us, and from yourself. A subconscious is by definition hidden. It's what gives us free will, or at least perception of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I say hidden information, I mean that at all layers. Like this idea of really trying to understand everything going on inside of your brain, I think is a misnomer. I think I think in some sense, your subconscious happens by definition below the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the whole point, is that it's happening. It's this sort of separate entity that you have these like, for instance, you don't want to have to control your heart, right? There's all these things that gives you freedom, because if you did have control over that, your life would suck.
You're like, oh, I've only I forgot to breathe.
Yeah, right. So this hidden information starts with from yourself, from a personal perspective, and then you expand that. What gives us the ability to even have this conversation is that there's information that I know that you don't know. There's information that you know that I don't know. If all this information was public and known, there would be nothing to discuss.
Yeah.
There would be no freedom. And so I mean that at every level of the stack, from the individual to the family. You know, like there are social tact. A lot of it comes from, obviously you always want to seek truth, but you don't need to say everything that comes out, into your brain, right? And so at your family level, and then of course at the government level, and then at the organization level with Locke, our environment is end-to-end encrypted. So we cannot see any of the data that you put in there by design. And that's what makes it a useful tool. If we could see the data that you put in there, our product would not be a useful product.
Right.
It would be,
insecure.
And
how do you play that in a world that is really being stripped away of that privacy, where I've read articles or research that, eventually that personal privacy will be gone. Maybe we'll have chips in our brain and all, insert sci-fi, AI, future of this fast moving technological world we live in, where that is something you may be up against in terms of that really being stripped away from everyone.
Yeah, I think that's always been the goal of governments, is a social credit score.
Right.
And this is the idea. I also wrote an essay on distributed action versus centralized planning. There's always this ideal that you can centrally plan how a city is laid out, or how a government functions, or an organization functions. But fundamentally, that's always going to lose, in my opinion, to distributed action. Because when you have, it's like if you look at a college campus and you look at where they put all the pavement for the paths for the students to walk, then you notice all of the beaten down grass pathways where students actually walk.
Yeah,
because that's
absolutely.
actually the most efficient way to do it.
Right.
You don't know these things until they happen. So trying to centrally plan,
until you build and ship something.
Right. Exactly.
Right. You that correlates directly to what you're saying in the early phases of Locke. Is like, well, we just had to build something to get it out there.
Yeah.
To understand it, or
to understand the problem.
Or understand that that's not even useful. Where it's like a lot of that can happen, no matter the organization, governmental or not. Is that it's that's a core of just putting stuff out there, or different pressures.
I mean, even looking at AI and large language models, we don't know what goes on inside of they're black boxes. Those weights, magic happens in there, and then out comes this intelligible output that's useful, right?
Sure.
And I think there's somewhat of a beauty to that. Obviously, there's work, as there should be, trying to understand them for security purposes. And that's kind of the difficult part, and why this is such a big problem to solve, is the tension between privacy and security is just fundamental to what it is. Like, you would be most secure if you were constantly monitored and somebody was walking around with guns, you know, to protect you.
Yes.
But like, is that how you want to live your life? Like, you have to figure out where, I call there's a phrase, data contract. There's a data contract between privacy and security, and it's kind of a sliding scale. And we're just trying to find the optimal version of that where you get maximum amount of both. And so that's why the tenets are so important.
Well, then, I mean, that folds into the third one. Personal freedom enables individual agency. You know, people with agency positively affect their communities.
And you can't have agency to positively affect your community if you can't feed yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And so having these sort of basic, you know, necessities, shelter and food and all these things, that's what enables somebody to actually improve a community. If everybody is struggling to survive, how are you know, so if we can empower people to have that personal freedom to take action, to take agency, that's how the world is going to be improved overall.
Sure.
Is through distributed action at a very hyper local level. And then, you know, you span that over the whole world can be uplifted, which is why we're based in Rochester, New York. I'm from Rochester. I've been told by many people to move to Silicon Valley and start the company there. And to be honest, it probably would have been better for the company if I had done that. But fundamentally, I believe in improving where you are. And if everybody does that, the world would be better.
Yeah. I think there's a semblance of community here at NextCore where you have people working on different things and a lot of overlap.
Right?
Yeah. You know, this is where you know each other from, and there is that sense of community, even if it is, you know, just in passing or whatever. That gives some meaning to being here in the moment, the place. I mean, you look at this building where it was Sibley's, and you see the history of the city here and like a past era, right? But that was like a meaningful thing. My mother was a buyer for Sibley's when she was probably like 18, 19, right? So it's like there's significance as you have that legacy and
that shared history. And that's something that inspires me, is looking at all the different eras in Rochester. You know, even you go back to the genesis with the flour mills. That's why we started. And then you have, you know, Kodak, and then you have Zero, and you have these distinct eras. And I think that there's a bright future here. And I kind of joke a little bit, you know, I think there needs to be another, you know, 5-letter company that is, you know, kind of employs a lot of people here. And so I you know, that's kind of my goal with Locke.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something else. And even, you know, mentioning the legacy of like Kodak and even like Xerox, Bosch, is like, that is still infrastructure that you see resonates here with all the photonics and stuff that I like. You know, somebody have to educate me because it's like beyond me, but right, like all that physical stuff.
You have to get Mickey on for that.
Absolutely. But so that's something that if you're not part of it, you wouldn't necessarily have any idea that it's going on and be a part of that community. I think, you know, and I do agree that you need that agency, and it comes from having that, you know, a freedom of privacy and not everything. I mean, what would TMZ do, right? There would be no economy of any stuff. Like what would be the point of going on TikTok? You know, it would be hard to like monetize, because I think that's something is like where you're getting those little bits that people are putting out, right? If everything was just like, oh, I could just look at whatever you're doing, or it loses a lot of humanity in a way.
Well, and it's interesting. I wrote a lot of this, and I started Locke just right before AI started becoming big. And maybe it needs an update, but this like context is so important for AI, and people are trying to figure out how to integrate it in their organizations.
Sure.
And they're trying to figure out how you can map all of these different disparate knowledges and bring them together. But fundamentally, the models there's not enough context for you to bring everything in. So you need to be able to sort of have individuals still who have domain knowledge, and that's not going to change. And so I think, again, this hidden information, having the right people with the right takes and the right perspective is still how you build a functional organization. And we're not going to be replacing that with you know, AI.
It's a tool.
Not yet.
It's a tool to enable it.
Yeah, and I talk a lot about this as a software developer. I use Claude Code, and
shout out Claude.
Shout out, yeah.
Sponsor the pod.
Give me, yeah, right. Give me more tokens.
Yeah.
There's code is a liability. So being able to generate infinite amount of it increases your liability infinitely.
Your surface area for attack.
For your surface area for attack. So obviously these tools are incredible, and I live in Claude Code, but knowing when you can iterate and just generate, infinite code versus how you actually get that shipped, that's a very different question. And that's something that I think as an industry, we're still figuring out.
I think everybody's still figuring it out because it's still fundamentally really new and recent. When you guys started, there was no Claude Code.
No.
Right. So that
ChatGPT had just come out.
Yeah. And that was it was like Will Smith with the weird spaghetti eating memes and kind of, it was like a parlor trick. I would like have fun with my friends, and it would do, oh wow, look at this cool little thing. Or I remember like watching, there's a couple subreddits that were just people deployed GPT-1 or GPT-2, and it was just them interacting with each other, and it was just like a toddler finding its way and just rambling nonsense, and the comments were nonsense, but it was novel and unique. But that was the training ground for what's developed.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting too with LLMs and code is most domains, like I do not like the writing output of any of these LLMs. What's amazing about humans is that we're so good at detecting patterns that like now you can detect when a website was made purely with AI, and now it physically looks bad to me. It looks like crap, which is interesting because 2 years ago that they were incredible looking sites compared to what was out there.
You can do this,
but now my priors have been updated. Yeah, right. And like innovation happens at the edge, and so humans are ability to push that is gonna continue. And so for writing, it seems, obviously I'm sure I've been fooled by AI writing many times, but it's pretty clear to tell if not this then that, the M dashes, all these various signals that still aren't fixed, that's still what the output is.
We're not doing X, we're doing XYZ or ABC. And there's like this tonal and cadence to, I think it's still there. And I would find, kind of getting back re-engaged with social media after like a long hiatus in terms of
good for you.
In terms of participating and particularly like LinkedIn, X, whatever, I could just see it, like what you're saying. And every post, like, oh, these are all just like clone posts, and it's just AI, slop or whatever you want to call it. And it's like off-putting. So it's like, even if you're doing it, and I'm guilty because I started using it years ago, and I would dictate it, and that's my go-to, is like I'll just like dictate it, like ramble, and oh no. But then I found myself, it's definitely, and I wonder if this is the same with your coding skills, because I hear this is that the more you're using AI for whatever the task is, you become more of like the manager, the editor, as opposed the composer. And that's where I think a lot of my stuff is going, like creatively writing.
I would agree that that's the case for coding. I think writing for me is still the domain where I value the insight and the edge, and the AI, I just can't stand its writing. Anytime I'll put in like, say a rough draft of my rambling that I've written and say, hey, like clean this up and make it polished, it just makes it worse. In my opinion, again, I think it's maybe I'm just defensive over my writing, and writing is thinking. So it's important to be able to write.
Gotta be defensive of something where AI, because it's really, it could take over, just everything. I'm like, oh, I'm just autopilot. You don't even like watch it anymore eventually. And that's, I think it's probably important to hold on to some things that like are manual and make you think.
Yeah. Well, I saw a great Twitter post that was, the reason you can tell AI is writing is because it injects the same amount of semantic meaning into every sentence and every paragraph. So the output is quite smooth. Whereas human writing is a lot spikier. It's like you'll have one sentence that really punches and then a lot of filler, and the AI is just a lot smoother and sort of neutered in that way. And I think, you know, you read the best writing. Like I'm a big Emerson guy. I love reading Emerson. And maybe I shouldn't, this is a tangent, but Emerson talks about how the best writing you find inspiration from is about 100 to 150 years ago. And funnily enough, my company's name is Locke, but trying to read Locke is extremely difficult. It's too far. It's too old. It's, you know, 300, 400 years old. And it's just, you can't really glean that many insights out of it. It's compared to our, you know, people like Henry David Thoreau and Emerson. And so, but their writing it's just so much more like, it just has so much more substance to it. And I don't think that's going to, I don't think
well, even anytime soon. Circling back to the point of your experience, you know, you're seeing your friend create music, and it's like, this was coming out of something, and it was birthed in a way into the world,
but it had been gestating for years.
It had been gestating. And I mean,
and that's from the subconscious.
That's from the subconscious. And as artists, you know, and then you see what I guess the slop the AI is creating, and maybe eventually it will have, I'm sure, feelings. You know, we're all who knows.
I'm not going to discount that it's never going to be that good.
But it's interesting is that, at least at this point in time, and probably not anytime soon, is that the distinct thing is that, like, we have that agency to let those things gestate because of they're private and personal. And some people who have that core ability, it comes out in many different artistic ways. That's how they choose to share it or get it out into the world. And it's,
but I think what's fundamentally interesting to me about that is that, again, that gestation period, you don't even know what's happening. It's hidden from you. But that's where that insight comes from. Like when rappers freestyle, like it's just getting pulled out of them. But there's a whole previous shared history that they've spent time developing in order for that content to come out. Otherwise, you know, it's not going to come out. And so that being hidden from you, I think that's where that creativity comes from.
David Lynch, in his book, he believed that all of these ideas are buried in our collective subconscious, right? Like, so when you're digging deep, and that's where these ideas would come from, that, like, nothing is new under the sun, right? And channeling that, I think he was using transcendental meditation, and, like, you know, made a lot of really wild films and just great art. But that's funny, is that, like, where those things come from and where people go to find it is, like, you know, you're excavating this, and it's coming from somewhere,
and you might not even realize when those materials are being you know, deposited into you, because it feels bad, like, a lot of the time. Like for instance, with Locke, we weren't a overnight success. So I have driven Uber on the weekends for 3 years to pay bills. But all of these conversations I'm having, driving around my city, interacting with people at every strata of, you know, humanity, every type of story, the amount of insight that I've gotten into the human condition from all those thousands of interactions. I mean, I've done thousands of rides. That is something that I think ultimately I will, in my later years, benefit from. There's this whole corpus of experience that I can draw from to write about and understand individuals better. I wouldn't have had that if I, you know, we interviewed for Y Combinator right when we started, and we didn't get in. So 7% of applicants interview, 50% of those interviews get in. So we were the 7% that interviewed, but we didn't get across it, right? If we had just gotten that, I never would have experienced those years. And so, you know, I think, everything, I mean, I don't want to say everything happens for a reason. That's cliche. It's not the case. But, you know, every life experience you can benefit from.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, you know, in terms of Locke, where it's going. How do you see these core kernels of, you see as personal truth, you know, and that's guiding your business? How do you see that going into the world where there's you have this AI complex that's growing? You have, you know, we're talking about mythos and just the cyber and a couple of sophisticated attacks that we just we're seeing
Oh, they're
this
accelerating
this
every
week.
day. Yeah.
You know,
NPM and, yeah.
what's your approach, and what do you see as being, you know, Locke's edge in this developing world?
So going back to even when we first started, when I was working IT and my time was spent resetting passwords, the current equivalent we have for human authentication and identity is a password. If you can remember this, effectively, I am whoever like. If I know your password, I am you, as far as the website's concerned. So our solution is to use passive biometrics to continually authenticate all the time. So you have these signals that your body is putting out that we can use as authenticating factors, but we can just do it passively and we can do it all the time. So this would alleviate a lot of potential for attacks, because a lot of these access tokens, like for a lot of the NPM supply chain attacks that have been happening, they have these access tokens, and if they get stolen, then they can upload malware to NPM, and that gets spread. If those tokens were authenticated continuously, or I prefer the word continually, but that's semantics. Then those problems would be alleviated because they're tied to a specific individual. The real challenge is figuring out how you square that with the privacy stuff in a zero knowledge way. But this continual authentication, we estimate we can get 6 nines of authentication purely passively. So you don't have to even do anything. There's no camera involved. And ultimately, AI has made the internet harder to access.
Right.
And I hope in 5 years from now, we are not having to type in all these 6-digit codes we get texted or through our authenticator apps or through our emails. It's such a terrible user experience. And ultimately, we want seamless and secure access, and we want to get rid of those 2FA codes.
Yeah, I can't get into one of my authenticator apps. I don't even know what's on there, or it's like.
And so now you're just locked out.
Yeah, I'm just locked out.
You're locked out. and I say it's maybe sounds a little melodramatic, but getting locked out of a website you should have access to it's like being wrongfully jailed. Yeah, it's like the same level of stakes. You're I should be able to get into this account, but I can't.
I don't even know what's on that account and if it's important, but maybe that's a liability in of itself too.
And so what we're building now with Locke Lookout is an agent that will automatically go out and find all the things that you have access to, and it'll change your passwords to be strong, and it'll anonymize your email online, and it'll collect your digital identity and then give you ownership over it again and clean it all up.
Because I don't have that mind to like grasp those levels of security authentication. I just know the application. When you say this is post quantum, what does that really mean? Because I know that's something as we get to this quantum age, they're going to be able to hack all the passwords anyway, is what the trajectory, or at least my understanding of it.
Yeah.
So if you could explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, I'm probably just as someone who's total novice. Maybe a 5-year-old would pick it up more naturally.
So our platform is post-quantum secure, which sounds really impressive. In reality, all it means is that we have implemented the current standards that are already inherently quantum secure. Our competitors can't do that as easily because they have all this tech debt, where as a startup, we built it from the ground up to use these new standards to be quantum secure. So what it means is that there's this algorithm called Shor's algorithm that theoretically a quantum computer can break a encryption key in I believe it's log amount of time. So if you know, this is not explained like I'm 5, I apologize.
No.
But there's time complexities. So in order to guess let's just say, for the sake of argument, it's not, but say to guess a password, you have to guess all possible combinations, and at the 50% guess right, you're gonna get in on average. So the quantum computers allow you to guess a lot less, and it allows you to basically, I believe the math is you square root that. So you cut it down significantly, and it makes it so that you could crack
closing the blueprint of we know it's this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it doesn't do that for passwords, but it does that for asymmetric encryption keys like RSA, which is everywhere, and elliptic curves are vulnerable as well. So there's this new standard that uses what's called lattice-based cryptography, which is it's a new type of problem that, as far as we know, quantum computers can't break it. It might come out in the future that quantum computers, there's a new algorithm we developed that actually can break it. So what's really important is what's called crypto agility. It's the ability to change algorithms as new attacks surface over time, because security is a game of cat and mouse to some extent. So, with all these AI data centers being built out, the amount of computation power exists is so much more now that, yeah, a password needs to be 16 characters to be secure. And people already couldn't remember passwords when they were 8 characters.
Yeah.
So,
It's my pet's name, middle name, 1, 2, 3,
right,
or
my birthday.
Or it's the same password. Either for the human condition, passwords aren't particularly compatible.
No,
I would say
humans are really bad at memory.
Yeah.
Our memory, well, actually, we're really good at compressing memory. We're bad at exact recall.
Yeah, if you have a complicated password that is 16 characters, all these, I couldn't tell you. I mean, there's probably a small percentage of people that like have photographic memory can do that, but
now you're expected to remember a different one for every
site.
The average person has 168 accounts.
That's wild.
So you're not going to remember 168 of those.
What about how many do you have? How many does above average person have?
I have many hundreds.
Many hundreds. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure I do. I don't even know what's an authenticator account. You'll have to look out.
So
for me.
So our product Locke ID is a password and passkey manager that's post-quantum secure.
Yeah.
And that's just the platform that enables Locke Lookout to this agent that will automatically go in, log in as you, and change those passwords to be something new, secure. And then importantly, to combat phishing attacks, we will anonymize your email address across the internet. So every website has a different anonymous email address. And each one of those aliases gets locked to only receive email from that one service. So even if they get out, nothing's coming through. And we can then use that to detect, where
the intrusion was.
Exactly.
So in those cases I've had 2 that I've been involved with in the past week, just by passing, just by being in the business and getting emails or, look out. And I guess we could just give this, without naming names or anything, but I got this email, or we received this email to one of our company's emails. And it was, hey, this API authentication from this company that maybe we did something with, it's ambiguous. You need to go in and update their API credentials or this is expiring. And it looked like it was coming from Twilio, SendGrid. And so much so that my business partner forwarded it to me. It was just like, hey, what's this? Do you remember this account? Do we need this? And it was coming from, we authenticated that it was from this company. So they were compromised.
Right. And that's a really big challenge because trusted domain.
It's trusted domain. And it was like, maybe we know this, maybe not. It's like playing on that social engineering factor.
Right.
But we're pretty diligent, but average person maybe is not. And the fact that, we were like, oh, maybe this is ours. The fact that it didn't raise a red flag for us who, are kind of really watching what's coming in. We get these emails or, if a client gets it's like, oh yeah, that's definitely something's wrong there.
Mm-hmm.
We can kind of have a sense for it. How does Lookout prevent that scenario from happening in the first place?
Yeah, great question. So we have basically 3 different layers of phishing protection. So this is a business email compromise, BEC, which means there's a legitimate domain that is sending you these phishing attacks, which is really hard to detect because it's a legitimate email.
Yeah.
They got hacked. So the first layer with Lookout would be these secure inboxes, these email aliases. So if they were using it, they potentially wouldn't have been hacked in the first place because they were probably phished. That's typically how this goes. So you protect on the outside of preventing their email from getting hacked and your email from ever getting out.
It would have never got, that email would have never in this alternate reality. And if you believe it, maybe it did happen in an alternate reality. We never received that email and it wasn't even a conversation.
But even though there's a second layer that we detect, which was impersonation detection. So when you click on the link and it opens up a fake Twilio account, we can detect that this account or this website is impersonating a known brand.
So
then we can stop it.
So that's the second layer.
That's the second layer. Yep.
Okay.
And then the third layer is passkeys, which is the new standard that replaced passwords, which basically gives you a device-bound key. Our authenticator app would recognize that it's not the right domain, and we wouldn't let you log in because then they'd have your key. So
Yeah.
pass keys are fundamentally a lot more secure than passwords, because your password, you'll just type it in and then they got you. So we don't even let you do that.
So, and you're selling this through MSPs as partners. So somebody could onboard this, and the competitors don't have that capability, and they're not post quantum.
So they're not quantum secure. A lot of their passkey support is really poor. Passkey adoption has been really bad because people have no mental model for what it is. The average person just wants to get access to their stuff. They don't want to have to know these terms. So their usability is really bad. And then they don't have this inbuilt phishing protection. They don't have this email anonymization. So we're trying to work at every layer of the stack here to provide this kind of onion, multiple layers, defense in depth, they call it.
Yeah.
Where we're protecting at every step.
There's multiple layers of protection.
Right.
And
that's all built into our platform.
It's built in. Mm-hmm. So, and then that's across the enterprise or the SMB.
Yep.
And
individuals as well. I mean, our mission with Locke is to provide freedom for individuals. So a big part of what we focus on when we sell to a business is, again, that word data contract between the employee and the employer. So what'll happen with a lot of these small businesses is an employee will save a password and for the business, and then that employee leaves, and now they've absconded with the password, and now the business doesn't have access.
Yeah, I've had that situation.
It happens all the time, and it's one of those things. It's like we have a client that hasn't been able to update their website for over a year because they just don't have access anymore.
Yeah.
So we make sure that every Locke ID has their own personal vault that nobody can access except for them. Making sure that personal things get saved in the personal vault, that business things get saved in the business vaults, and that everything is properly segregated. Is a really important part of what we do.
So even if it is, so for that employee, they're keeping their personal stuff separate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every business that purchases Locke Armory, all their employees also get Locke ID as part of the deal, because that allows them to keep secure on a personal level, because your employees are your weakest link.
Right.
And that's always going to be the case. And protecting them at an individual level is going to also protect your organization. And then we have various partners that we work with, and these partners manage credentials for clients potentially, or they give them access, they manage email, and our tool allows them to all work very nicely together, from the employee to the employer to the partners.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I think you're gonna really kill it with it, and hopefully everybody's in Rochester's working for you. Take the take over for Top Galsado.
There's a lot of work to be done still.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of problems. I mean, how often do you face, even today, trying to get access to something and it's a real pain in the ass? And even like these 2FA codes, it's like, oh, you got to log in using 2FA. So now you have to go and pull up your phone, and now you see your emails, and you got a message from your wife, and it's like now you're distracted because you're on your phone.
Oh yeah,
so
that's me.
Yeah. Oh, that's me every single time.
Yeah.
I can't stop it.
Then I'm like, I don't even want to get into it, because we'll be down like that same rabbit hole. I'm like, oh, okay, now I got to do this.
And now you forgot what you even tried to get access to.
Yeah, it was like, what were we even talking about?
So ultimately, our vision for Locke is to provide seamless and secure access and everything, where you just get on your computer and it knows who you are, and in a zero knowledge way, you can just log into everything, and kind of just eliminate barriers to provide people to operate more efficiently.
Yeah. So, and
more secure at the same time.
And more secure with the reducing the annoyance of the end user of having to like understand where passwords are, or employee leaves and it's like, oh, he took the password, or like, we don't know what this account is, we can't update the website.
Yeah
like pretty
basic things,
and you'd be surprised, like over the years I've had that experience where it's like, you don't have access to that, like we always try to make sure that we don't own anything, like unless like you want to like have us buy it for you, something like that, but you have access in terms of, but there's some things like when it comes to like domain name or like core hosting, those are things that are like critical pieces for the business own, just from the freedom side.
It's business continuity.
It's business continuity.
And so something else that our platform does that nobody else does is we have end-to-end encrypted recovery. And this is a big challenge, again, the tension between usability and security is that if you lose access to something and you do an email password reset, that means that your email is the master account. That if somebody has your email, they can reset passwords for everything else. What we've done, we have support for that because you need to, but also we have this feature called Trusted Circle in social recovery that allows you to delegate access to different people. And it's like nuclear codes where you need multiple to turn at the same time for it to work. So each person gets a little piece of your key and you set a threshold. And once that threshold is achieved, everything is recombined and you get full access in an end-to-end encrypted way. So it's much harder to hack because now you have to hack 3 or 4 different people in order to get access rather than just one. So again, security through community.
Yeah. That's pretty wild. Where, in maybe with Locke or, dealing with the record deal that you've been a part of, or going back to your web agency days, that's where this too dumb to quit the question comes in. It was like, there's an ethos as a Huckalero, as an entrepreneur, there's moments where you're like, geez, did I make the right decision to be doing that? Yeah. Or of course. You'll have the high highs and the low lows, maybe in the same hour, like, oh my God, we won. And then it's just like, nope. Or vice versa.
We lost and then, whoa.
And what do you have like a specific one that stands out to you in terms of a situation or just a time period, a moment where it was like, man, but you persevered through it?
Yeah. This might not be exactly what you're thinking. This might not be the best example, but I'm a runner. I love running long distances, and I decided I wanted to do a 50-mile ultra marathon. And I was, in the middle of the race. The only time I thought about quitting was at about mile 33, when I was nearly at the top of the second mountain. Like there was 2 mountains over for the race, and I was nearly at the top of the second one, and I sat down and I thought maybe I would quit. But then you're like, I just ran 33 miles. I'm at the top, nearly at the top of the second mile. This would be the worst time to quit. I might as well just finish it. And I feel like that's often the case where when you think it's over, that the downhill is
body
coming. It's right there.
Or was your body just like screaming at that moment? Like it's got to be like, no, we're done. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, you've been running for 8 hours or whatever, and you're like,
No, this is a good one. This is a real good one, man. Because that's
it's not in business, but it's an analogy to what running a startup is like.
Yeah, and also just that's an incredible feat that most people never even approached, man. So
anybody could do it at the end of the day. In terms of running, you just need to keep going.
Yeah.
I think
easier said than done.
That's true. Yeah, you have to actually do it.
You have to actually do it.
That's a difficult part.
Same with running a company too.
Yeah.
Same with running a company too.
Yeah, and I love that too dumb to quit because it is an irrational thing. It's like intelligently, like my opportunity cost of doing this startup is significant. I could be working at many other different places, doing other things. But I'm choosing to do this. And I think a big part of it is just, that sort of naive delusion that's like, I can do this, but also the true belief in the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
And I've never, for once in my life, I've never questioned that. And I know that this is a problem that needs to be solved, and I know that I'm capable of solving it.
Yeah, I think I see that in you, and I think there's, noticing it and seeing that in that entrepreneurial spirit of, that too dumb to quit, Huckalero's mentality.
Huckalero.
Yeah, Huckalero. So, I think, this is a good point to, tie things in and wrap it up, is that that moment of, to keep on going.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, mile 33, you persevered through it. In the business, you have those little daily ones, and you're gonna have challenges out a set. You're gonna have different problems as the business grows.
Yep.
And you just trade. Grass is always greener, right? Like, I believe you articulated well earlier, is like you have different problems, different stages, but I think if you have that innate thing that you can't really teach this at school, you can't teach that.
You just have to do it.
You just have to do it. And I think that's something that like I'm interested. This has been a great conversation. Is that
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
What is that essence? Is like capturing that essence, because there's a lot of different.
Well, there's a lot of
different
doubt.
flavors in it.
There's a lot of doubt because you're also like, am I actually capable of doing this? And then, like, you look in reality, you look around, and it's like, not everybody is. So maybe I'm not. And how do you push through that feeling? It's like, for me, the answer is I just go on a run. That's like my therapy.
That's smart. Smart, stay healthy.
But that insecurity, it comes in, and it has to. I mean, unless you're like sociopath or something, it's gonna. But you need to just have that kind of North Star. And if you really believe in that and keep going, sometimes maybe the answer is to quit. But I'm just too dumb to do that.
Too dumb to quit. Yeah, hell yeah. Well, Connor, where should people get in touch if they want to learn more about Locke? I'll post it up. But is there?
Yeah, you can add me on. I'm active mostly on LinkedIn these days. Connor Peters, LockeIdentity.com.
LOCKE identity. John Locke is the tenants.
Or LOCKE.id, Locke.id. That's our other domain.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. Like that's the last point here is my father would be like, when I was like, what's your MO? What's your modus operandi? And I think it's funny because I like looked it up as I was just kind of preparing, trying to figure out what a Huckalero is, what this podcast is supposed to be. And I thank you for like coming in, experimenting. And I think we
happy to do it.
A great thing. But I'll add to that is that, it's the modus operandi, the MO. It's Latin, and it's individuals' habits of working, particularly in the context of business or criminal investigations. So I think that encapsulates what the Huckalero persona could be. Well, minus the criminal, of course, but that's tongue in cheek.
Yeah,
that's tongue in cheek, and like it's having a little fun.
Yeah.
And I think if you're having fun and it's doing this.
And that's the other thing that keeps me going is it's just like you look around at the job market and you're like, at the end of the day, I get to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that is worth a lot of money.
It's worth your peace of mind. It's worth your agency.
Yeah.
Your agency.
I can do what I want.
Yeah. It allows you to follow these tenets in life.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Locke Identity. Check it out. If you don't get it, I don't know what you're doing.
Thank you,
I got to get
really
it in, Yeah.
And also, I mean, Mike has been an amazing help for me. Developer Squad. They do great work. I've seen that. So
yeah, well, I appreciate it. And no, I think everybody really should take a look at where they have their passwords or if they're running a business, running an MSP, there's not a better time where what's the deadline is 2030 for post quantum. It's going to be.
Yeah. Well, Google moved it up to 2029.
2029. You got to do this anyway.
Yeah. You are going to have to.
And I mean, we won't name names, but the other guys are,
they're not,
they're behind
and
it's going to be a mess when they do it.
And the big thing too with AI is an accelerant. It's accelerating technological development. It's accelerating quantum computing development as well. It's going to push all facets of the economy. And quantum has been this thing that's kind of been promised for a while and has never really come through. It's actually happening now. And so just get ahead of it.
There's no time like the present.
Amen. All right. Thanks.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for having
Yeah, of course.
Or coming on and as we are figuring out the setup and everything like that. Really appreciate it.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
I'm going to stop.
All right.